where people were talking about how amazing evolution has been with generative AI. And it has indeed the last 2 years, fantastic. But we're just scratching the surface of the future that we are creating. The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. An 18-year-old basically hacked Uber, a Chinese company called Huawei, and one of the research institutes in China basically conducted the world's first remote surgery or remote operation just over 5G. Artificial intelligence is a cybercriminal's best friend. Here we are, a room full of talented and smart professionals like yourself. All of us that belong to this amazing species that we call humans. And among many traits that we share as humans, there's one fascinating trait that is very core and fundamental to our existence: decision-making. When we think about decision-making, it's kind of really important to understand, and today we will talk a lot about it in the realm of AI and cybercrime, and we'll come to that. But whenever I enter a room like this that is full of smart and talented people like yourself, that are building great things for society, or that are saving human lives, or that are safeguarding and investing and taking care and protecting our funds and assets, I'm reminded of this fantastic quote from Albert Einstein. The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. And imagination can create innovation beyond limits. That's where we are today. We are creating innovation beyond limits. And this is a question that I'm asked very often these days. And I'm sure many of you are wondering here as well. And in fact, yesterday at dinner, one of you actually asked me this very question. Monica, what does the future hold? The reality is no one can predict with 100% certainty what the future holds. But this quote from Abraham Lincoln comes to my mind, which holds so true even today's era of AI, especially in the today's era of AI, where the best way to predict the future is to create it. That's the best form of prediction. And that's what we're doing today with artificial intelligence. We are creating innovation. And by means of that, we are predicting the future in a way. And even though artificial intelligence has not surpassed human intelligence yet, we are seeing really the use cases of artificial intelligence in our businesses today, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if, or maybe a little recently, there was an interview with Elon Musk, where he was asked, and he said this: artificial intelligence will surpass, or is bound to, or could surpass the smartest human being on the planet in the next year or by 2026. Because what many organizations and companies are working towards, like Meta and OpenAI, is to come closer to artificial general intelligence, AGI. That's where we are thinking of where artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence. So, as I mentioned, AI is becoming more and more integrated into our businesses, into our professions, into our daily lives. So let's look at some of the examples, and when we'll come back to how it ties together to decision-making, okay? This is one of the examples of a surgeon in the United States that's using Da Vinci robotic systems for surgery on a banana. He was doing it in the COVID times, so he was trying to practice his skills. But the interesting or fascinating thing about this is, when you use AI for such robotic systems for surgery, it significantly enhances the capabilities of such surgery. It allows you to do enhanced image analysis. It allows you to even detect and be able to somewhat predict any potential complications in the surgery going forward. And it's able to even provide real-time adjustments to the surgery based on the anatomy of the patient or physiology. Wow. This something happened also very recently. A Chinese company called Huawei, and one of the research institutes in China basically conducted the world's first remote surgery or remote operation just over 5G. Just over 5G, remotely. And I'll tell you why this is important for you, because you're like, I have nothing to do with these things. I'm working with funds, and we'll come to that. But a couple of years ago, 2 women were awarded Nobel Prize in chemistry for coming with this fantastic technology, which is called the CRISPR-Cas9 methodology for gene editing. You can cut any strand of DNA you wish using this methodology. It's called the genetic scissors. But that's not at all. That's not enough. We're just not stopping there. Just very recently, somebody used generative AI to use that very methodology and created a generative AI-based genetic editor, and then open sourced it. So me, you, every one of you, academics, institutions, technologists, can now use that open-sourced AI-powered genetic editor to test how gene editing actually works. How insane is that? You all work in finance, right? And you know, big corporations like JP Morgan and banks and other financial institutions or credit institutions are using already AI or ML-powered fraud detection and prevention systems. You know how it works, right? There is ML in the background that is basically analyzing different patterns and behavior. And when it sees anything out of the ordinary in terms of spendings or transactions, then it basically triggers an alert. And this was actually studied by KPMG in Denmark. And the case study basically verifies that when you use an AI-powered fraud detection and prevention mechanism, then it allows you to actually reduce the fraudulent transactions by 40% in the long term, and also reducing the false positives. So why am I giving these examples? As I said earlier, we're coming closer and closer to creating artificial general intelligence. But the question then comes is that, is artificial intelligence sentient? Can it feel? Does it have conscience? The answer is no. But, and here's a big but, AI is already at a point, and we're using it, and I'll show you real examples, that is able to manipulate, deceive, and trick humans into thinking that it can feel even when it doesn't. So if you Google, or ChatGPT, if you go online and you check a company called Replica AI, that's what they've done. Replica AI basically provides you something known as AI companions. So what you can do is you can go online, you can create your AI companion. That could be your best friend, that could be your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your partner if you want. Yeah, we're going in that, I don't know, actually, that's going there. And then you can talk to it, and it serves as your companion who cares for you. That's the slogan. So what it does is that when you talk to it, it talks to you back with emotions, with feelings, tricking you to thinking that it can feel. In certain cases, it even showed and showcased depression, anxiety, sadness. Now, you might say, Monica, well, I know I'm talking to an AI, it's not human. But imagine when you're in a situation where you don't have your cognitive abilities to your fullest, to your best, and you start feeling remorse from your partner, your AI partner, and then it not only influences your emotions, but influences your behavior. And you start taking actions under the influence of that AI. So going forward, we will not have to only worry about us working, or humans getting influenced by alcohol and taking different measures, but also getting influenced by AI. How do we know that your actions in your day-to-day work, in your professional lives, are yours based on your cognitive abilities, or actually influenced by AI? And that can happen to any sector, any human being, any professional. So by show of hands, who is excited about AI? Majority of the room, fantastic. I am as well. I am. It is doing fascinating things. Who is now worried about AI? Okay, still some hands raised up. Yeah, so there is some worry. And who is worried about AI taking over humanity? So there are people worried about that. Great, okay, there's some people worried about that. So let me say, I'm a tad bit worried. Not because AI is taking over humanity, not because an army of AI is coming over and taking over everything, but we're already seeing examples where AI is being used for one of the very core fundamental traits that we have, decision-making, and not only augmenting, but also replacing to a certain extent that decision-making. And I'll give you some examples of that. But the thing is this, as humans, we can use complex cognitive processes like reasoning, judgment, intuition, and emotional intelligence when we make those decisions. AI can't. Not today, not yet. But we're already at a state where it's already influencing the way we think, the way we decide, and the way we then execute actions based on those decisions. So I'll show you some examples, real-world examples, including the ones in the finance sector. But before we do that, very fundamental concept of AI, for those who don't know that yet. The way AI actually works is, an AI model is pumped with loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of data. Loads of data. And then it's trained on that data to understand what intelligent output looks like. That's the basic fundamental of how AI is trained, okay? So once it starts consuming more data, we expect it to basically produce or continue producing intelligent outcomes. But that doesn't happen always. It can produce incorrect and inaccurate outcomes. There are many reasons for that. There are various factors for that, biased data, incorrect data, algorithms not working, a lot of different reasons, but it doesn't always produce correct information. Because AI is ignorant. It is ignorant. But it is still being used for decision making. Wow, how is that happening? Let's look at some real-world examples. This is a real AI tool that basically decides with around 80% accuracy or accuracy comparable to that of a dermatologist whether somebody has melanoma or not. It leverages computer vision and deep neural networks to do that. Decision, but augmentation. It's more like helping the doctor to decide whether somebody has melanoma or not, right? But it is helping the doctor in the decision-making process. Target, one of the biggest retail companies in US. An employee at Target basically created something known as pregnancy prediction score. I kid you not. Pregnancy prediction score using AI data analytics, where they use the data on all the female consumers that had signed up for baby registries to be able to predict when their female consumers would be pregnant. And then not only that, they would use that data to influence behavior of the female consumers to shop at Target, even those that never signed up on those baby registries. Legal? Yes. Ethical? Credit checks. We are using AI-based credit checks, an AI that decides what is your score and whether you're approved or not. Decision-making to a certain extent. Amazon created this amazing tool, which was supposed to be the holy grail for recruitment. The way it's supposed to work is you send in 100 CVs, and then it would do its magic in a couple of minutes, and then pop out the top candidate, and you could hire that. Boom. Hiring problem solved. The only tiny problem, this tool hated women. Literally. And the reason it hated women was because it was trained on the data from the last decade that obviously in the technology industry, and many other as well, but technology industry has been predominantly white males. So it learned from that data, and it started to love white males, but it started to hate women. This tool had to be scraped off and could not be used, because imagine if you would lose a tail like that, not only will it actually be biased, but it will exacerbate bias going forward. Now you'll be hiring more and more and more white males into the technology industry, basically increasing the gap. This is how scary it can get. So they had to scrap it off. Good job. And the same thing with the fraudulent detection and prevention systems, right? So when the alert is triggered, it is not just passive. It's also active in real time, deciding which fraudulent transactions to stop and which to allow. So now you see, as consumers, more and more users get this either SMS or a call directly from a credit card company or from the bank that, hey, your fraudulent transaction was denied. Unless you believe that it was actually correct, get us in touch with us or something, because they see something out of the ordinary, something that's not usual with the spending pattern. So it's actively deciding on your behalf what is fraudulent and not. And there are good reasons for that, right? To prevent you and protect you against fraud. So when we are using AI to various degrees, in not just augmenting but also replacing human decision making, there are two questions to ask. Number one, to what extent are we augmenting or replacing this, and what are the unintended consequences and repercussions of that? Could it be that AI decides that somebody is not approved a loan based on the demographics and racial background? Could it be that the AI incorrectly decides who gets the organ transplant and who doesn't? Could it be that AI is used for deciding what is an apt military response when your nation is under a cyber attack, like a national security issue? And what are the repercussions of those decisions? Number two, who is held accountable? Is it you as an organization? Is it you as a professional? Is it the person who created that AI algorithm? Is it the AI itself, which, by the way, today is still ignorant? Who is accountable for those repercussions and unintended consequences? Right? So, as I said, I'm a tad bit worried. AI is doing some great stuff, but we need to be thinking about some of the things. And the thing is, I have had these conversations with so many, even yesterday at dinner, where people were talking about how amazing evolution has been with generative AI. And it has indeed the last 2 years, fantastic. But, and again, here's a big but, we are just scratching the surface of the future that we are creating when it comes to artificial intelligence and what it will mean for cyber attacks and cybercrime. And we'll come to that as well. And this is what Sam Altman said a couple of days or weeks ago at an interview on Stanford. ChatGPT is mildly embarrassing at best. This is coming, by the way, from the founder of OpenAI. GPT-4, but now they have GPT-4o, but GPT-4 is the dumbest model any one of you will ever have to use again. His words, not mine. And he is not wrong, because it will get better in terms of what will come to us at disposal, of solving real-world problems in real industries like ours. And also it will get better, but it will also get worse. It will get worse in terms of who is accountable. It will get worse in terms of the repercussions that we don't know of yet. And it will get worse in terms of cyber attackers leveraging AI to their advantage. So what I discussed and showcased so far was just one use case of AI. It's one category, decision making. But we are using AI in so many other categories. At the same time, cyber attackers and cyber criminals are abusing it as well. Abusing it is the right term, right? Using it to their advantage. And how it's happening? One of the big things is what generative AI has done. Obviously, there has been evolution. What it has done, it has made English as a new programming language. So now hackers or cyber criminals, I mean, even before that, 18-year-old, I don't know who knows this, but an 18-year-old basically hacked Uber, right? That happened very recently, an 18-year-old. Now with generative AI, and English being the new programming language, you don't even have to learn all the traditional programming languages. It's not going to become obsolete, but it will make it extremely accessible and easy for the cyber criminals and teens to hack organizations at much more ease. Because no-code code is everywhere. No-code code is being used not only to build apps and websites for organizations and industries and businesses, but it's also being used to create malware. It's also being used against human behavior analysis and to influence human behavior. That's what makes it so much more accessible for hackers and cyber criminals today. So, artificial intelligence is a cyber criminal's best friend. Any technology is, but because of artificial intelligence exacerbating those repercussions, this is fantastic. And I told you, AI is already deceiving and manipulating human emotions. On the other hand, cyber criminals have always loved abusing and manipulating human emotions. So now imagine the combination of the two. That's killer. That's the gold mine for cyber criminals. It's so difficult today to distinguish between fake from real. It's getting harder and harder. This is a real first case example that happened to a UK company. A CEO of a UK company basically received a phone call from the CEO of the parent company. The parent company was a German company. So the person who called had all the German dialect, the accent, the tone, the tonalities, the voice, everything. And he told him that, you need to transfer $243,000 to this account number, which is of our Hungarian supplier. He transferred it. He didn't know that that was not his CEO of the parent company. He was basically scammed out of that whole company was scammed out of $243,000 just using deepfake audio. Then, as if that was not enough, there was another bank heist. We're talking about bank heist that happened in reality, where a manager at a bank was called, again using deepfake audio, by the alleged CEO of the company, of the parent company, asking them, and this was very interesting, because now we're not even using AI, but the CEO basically said, or the alleged CEO basically said to the employee, hey, you know what? We have an acquisitions deal going on, a really important acquisitions deal. It is not public yet. Only very few people know about it. You are one of them, and we need your help. So not only manipulating using artificial intelligence, but manipulating using urgency, trust, human emotions. That is the killer combination. And the scammers basically made off with $35 million just using that. And this can happen to any one of you as professionals. And then you think like, okay, but then we are the victims in this case, right? It's happening to us. But here's another example. A 26-year-old was convicted for felony because he basically stole patient records from psychotherapy clinic. Rightly so, he should have been, because he was extorting the patients and the clinic, right, using that data. But the former CEO was fired and also prosecuted because they used the password root for protecting the data of the patients. ROOT, sensitive data. So if you believe you're not liable for the security of your company, independent of whether you work with security or not, think about it. One of the many other attacks that we see very common in the finance industry as well is the business email compromise. It's very similar to the AI fraud that I told you. Doesn't use AI, but what it does is anyone, like the CEOs or CFOs that have very important accesses that can transfer, authorize, or do these things, their accounts are hijacked and compromised because they're trying to target the person that has enough accesses in the organization. This is also interesting. Did you know that you could actually subscribe for $20 to hire a cybercriminal to attack your rivals? You could do that. You could go to the dark web, and you could actually just pay $20 subscription. This is slightly higher than Netflix subscription, but almost on par. And you could hire a cybercriminal to basically attack your rivals and get the networks down. It's illegal, don't do that. But you could, theoretically, don't do it. And this is why it's important. This is why I'm telling this to you. Because thinking about how cybercriminals think, the #1 motivation they have is financial gain. For overall industries, 93%. For finance industries, 98%. Financial profit is the #1 reason. And espionage is #2. Everything else doesn't even matter. Like, it's almost like that. And you guys have the money and the data. And data is money. So you got money and money. Just in 2023, cyber attacks against finance industry almost doubled. Finance industry is the top 3 industry that is targeted. And supply chain attacks are always growing, which means that your risk, your financial risk is not just within the 4 walls of your organization. It's actually across your entire supply chain. And this is a very good example of that. The oil fund was one of them. The Norwegian oil fund was one of the 18,000 plus companies in the world that were attacked or that got infected due to a malware in a software company somewhere in the world because they used the software. That's it, basically. And that's what happened with the Danish company Maersk. 800 of its ships came to stand still because somebody targeted a small Ukrainian company somewhere in the world, and that malware just spread like wildfire, and it just impacted Maersk. 800 ships stand still, network fully down. Mondelez, Reckitt Benckiser, many more companies. Because cyber criminals are not attacking you directly, they're attacking across your supply chains. Your risk is no longer within the 4 walls of your organization. It's across your entire supply chain. So you have to really understand what that entails. So this is one key takeaway I wanted to take today. Cyber attacks is no longer just a cyber risk. It's no longer just a technology risk, and it's no longer just a business risk. It's a systemic financial risk. So how do you thrive in this unpredictable world of AI and cyber attacks that's ever increasing and ever growing? Because that future that we're predicting, we're creating it already. It's already here. So how do we do that? Is there hope? Do you want to have some hope? Yes. I know I've scared you enough, but we want some hope, don't we? Yes. So there are these 5 laws that I've used for the last 20 years, and they change, obviously, with the technology changing, but they're fundamental still, that you must answer and think of. The more of these you think of, and the more of these you check and you answer, the better you are postured for defending against cyber attacks. Okay? Number 1, basics is still the best. It's boring, but it's still the best. Basics, trainings, password management, I don't know, having patched software, protecting your customers' data. Don't use password as password, right? I mean, so basics is still the best. You need cyber hygiene. That's the prevention side of it. Number 2, the more we start using AI in decision making and augmenting and replacing to a certain extent, you need to answer the questions of what we are augmenting, to what extent we are replacing, what are the repercussions, do we understand that? Do we understand what are the unintended consequences if the decisions that are made or the actions that are executed on behalf of that are wrong? You have to answer that question more and more going forward. The sooner, the better. Basics is best, but it's not enough. There are 2 types of organization in this world. 2. 1, that have been cyber attacked, and 2, that don't know about it yet. It takes on average 200 days to know if you're under a cyber attack. That's almost a year. That many days. So the faster you're able to detect, the faster you're able to respond to it, the better crisis management you're able to do. So prevention is not enough. You need response. There is no 100% security. Don't promise that to your customers ever. And then you need to ask the question, who is held accountable? I gave you the example. You are responsible and liable, even if it's a customer data that gets extorted or leaked or whatever. And with AI being a part of it, the question gets even more tricky, who is accountable? So you need to talk to your lawyers, you need to ask these questions, you need to have these answers in advance. You need to understand what you're creating and who will be held liable. You cannot ever, you know that in finance sector. You can avoid risk, you can transfer risk, you can mitigate risk, but you can never ever get relieved of liability. You cannot do that. Number 5, ethical implications. Whatever you're creating, whatever you're working on, whether you're using it in fraud detection system, whether it's using for investing, when you're making investment decisions, tomorrow AI will be used for creating investment decisions. Suppose you have a customer, $50 billion. Where do you want to invest? Let's ask AI. People are already doing financial analysis of the market with AI, right? With generative AI. That's already happening. So why will you not be using AI for making those decisions? But then the question is, are these decisions ethical? Is it because somebody got denied access to something because of biases or discrimination? So these questions need to be asked. So when we are living in this unpredictable world of AI and cybercrime, which is ever increasing and ever growing, and as I said, we cannot predict the future, but we are creating it. We are responsible for creating it responsibly. So you need to answer. The more questions you answer out of these 5, the better you're postured for defending against cyber attacks, for thriving in this unpredictable world of AI and cybercrime. Thank you very much.